Hello and welcome to Becoming Unstoppable Fitness and Weight Loss. We're your hosts, Lynn and Stephanie. We're just two ordinary girls. We were born without skinny jeans, and we refused to give up on our goal of becoming fit and fierce. Now we're coaches who get to share our passion for health and strength with others.
We started this podcast so we could share the knowledge and insights that have empowered many of our clients with an even larger audience, and our dream is to help you become unstoppable.
Today in episode 8, we're going to talk about becoming gracious in style. And you might be wondering how becoming gracious will help you become unstoppable in your fitness and weight goals. And we're going to bring it all full circle and explain it. So by the end, it will make perfect sense to you. But we're going to start out just talking about what graciousness actually means. So it can mean different things to different people. This is how we interpret it. And I'll start out just by asking Stephanie. So what does being gracious mean to you?
To me, graciousness means being thoughtful about how you affect the people around you. And then when it comes to yourself, it's being kind to yourself. It also being kind to others, but kind to yourself, and being able to give yourself a little forgiveness, but also fix the problems rather than linger in them.
Yeah, that's really good. For me, I just interpret it as being like a style issue. I'm always assertive, but I have learned to become a little more careful and thoughtful in the way that I assert myself, so that it builds allies instead of putting people off. So and that goes with myself too. I'm more gracious in the way that I handle myself as well. Yeah. So it builds more bridges, and I'm more cooperative with myself when I'm gracious.
That's great.
Yeah. So what are some examples? How have you become more gracious with yourself in your journey to become fit and fierce?
I will say I had to learn some graciousness for myself because the negative self-talk can really get you stuck. So I am kind of the opposite of Lynn, where she says she's initially assertive and kind of had to dial in
Borderline aggressive.
dial in the graciousness in the opposite direction, where I feel like I've been more on the passive side with other people and myself, and I had to learn to get that assertiveness in to do the right thing. And then with myself, I would be aggressive with myself, where I would have that negative self-talk though, and then with other people it'd be the very passive thing. For me, learning graciousness was being able to forgive myself when I made mistakes, and not, just say, oh, you're an idiot, you're ruining this, you can't achieve your goals. I had to flip my mindset and give myself a little grace and say, okay, you didn't do this right, but you are capable of fixing this and moving forward in a positive direction. So it wouldn't be like anytime I backtracked on my nutrition and had a bad weekend, and then I could have just and I've done this many times in the past, just let it go and be like, well, I'm never going to lose weight. I keep ruining it. So I'm just going to eat what I want. And then just you get stuck in that unhealthy pattern. But then by learning to give myself grace, I was like, okay, I messed up, but I'm going to pull myself together, get back on track, and I'm going to make this goal happen. It's a little setback, but that doesn't mean I can't achieve my goals long term. So that was really a key to success with weight loss, is being able to be forgiving of myself. But I did have that fear of being too forgiving or passive, like we talked about before, and just being like, okay, well, that's okay. I'll just give up, and each day be like, oh, it's okay, I messed up today. Oh, it's okay, I messed up again today. And then it's a month later. But what about for you?
Yes, well, I will definitely talk about that. But I think for you, what was really important. And I took Stephanie through my 12-week weight loss program. She lost 10 pounds. She was an amazing student. But more importantly than losing 10 pounds, she changed a whole bunch of things that she wanted to for herself. But I think what I noticed with you as far as this whole grace concept was that you made sure when you got back on the horse to accomplish your goal that you took away some kind of learning thing. So it wasn't just like the insanity of getting back on and doing the same old thing. You always learned a little bit. You're like, okay, I'm going to try again, but I'm going to do it I'm going to tweak my whatever it is, I'm going to change something up rather than just doing the same old habits that weren't getting you where you wanted to go.
Right. Yeah. You got to learn from your mistakes.
Yeah. So an example of that would be like, okay, so if you're starving when you come home from work, and you end up, eating the candy out of the cupboard because you don't have other options, an example of being graceful or tactful or helpful with yourself would be like, putting a healthy snack in the fridge because you're going to be ravenous when you get home. So, okay, I'm going to put some veggie bags in there for myself, or, come up with a plan, something to help yourself succeed.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a way to like be prepared going forward and like a learning experience rather than just a self-loathing experience.
Yeah. Yeah. So you asked about, for me, becoming gracious with myself. I think that is like setting myself up for success the next time. But I think with other people too, I'm even thinking about, helping them, instead of like scolding one of my kids, like verbally, obviously, like, oh, you shouldn't do this, like help them succeed. Like, okay, if you're late for dance, let's put a clock in your bathroom to help you be on time for dance. Does that make sense? Yeah. So really being like a champion versus like just you're bad, or you failed. Which, gosh, I hope I didn't sound like that. That's what you can end up sounding, right?
Yeah.
If you don't help them think of some solutions.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what is the difference between being gracious and passive? We've talked about this, in the episode so far, but just maybe you can give a few more examples.
Graciousness is having that solution mindset that we talked about in a previous episode. So that's applying that to the kindness aspect and the tactfulness in your self-talk. And whereas like passiveness is when you maybe are still kind to yourself, but you just keep being kind to yourself. You don't find a solution. You don't move forward from it. You just get stuck where you're at. If you're passive, that's gonna, at least for me, I know it kept me where I was rather than making progress and going forward. When you're gracious, you can be loving towards yourself and kind to yourself, and then also grow from it and move forward. When you make mistakes or disappoint yourself or fall off the wagon, whatever it is, whether it's food or anything else you're trying to achieve, you can still be kind to yourself and not have, say that how horrible you are to yourself. But then you can still move forward from that. So you can keep that positive mindset and also create a solution to why you needed to give yourself grace in the first place.
Yeah.
So how do you feel?
Well, I'm thinking about like some of my clients who ask for recipes. And I'm like, hey, you can go to the internet and find some recipes. Like, so it would be easy for me to placate them and give them the recipes. It's not a big problem. I have like a whole lot of recipes on hand. But what I'm trying to do is help them, empower them in finding recipes themselves. So to me, that is being gracious, like setting them up for continued success isn't necessarily giving them the recipes. It's teaching them how to go find the recipes, or it's helping them to become that person for themselves, which kind of gets tricky. So I'm going back to that example with my daughter in dance, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, because the answer could have been like, okay, I'm going to start calling you 5 minutes before dance so you know when to come downstairs. Mm-hmm. But then by like, hey, let's go get an alarm, let's go get a clock for you, mm-hmm. then she learns that skill of, time management.
Right. It's got to come down to personal responsibility. Because that's one thing I really loved about your program is that it wasn't you being a crutch for people, because a lot of people are like, oh, I just need a nutritionist to tell me exactly what to eat and I'll do it and I'll lose weight. But it's like, okay, so are you going to have a nutritionist for the rest of your life? Mm-hmm. Like, you won't be able to ever just have a healthy lifestyle on your own, or you'll have a nutritionist and then you won't have one, and then you'll just go back to what you were doing.
It's not empowering.
No, so that doesn't give you independence.
Sorry to interrupt, but unless you truly don't know what to eat, but I feel like most people really by now, they do know what to eat.
Mm-hmm. The information's out there. I feel most people know like vegetables are good for you and candy's not. Yeah. There's more layers to it, of course, but
and we talk about those layers in our nutrition episodes. If you don't know nutrition, we are totally glad to help you with that.
Yeah.
And so you can become empowered. We're not trying to tell you exactly what to eat, but we're trying to give you the guidelines so you can help yourself eat well.
Right. Yeah. No, I think learning that personal responsibility, whether it's nutrition or anything else, that's how you're going to be in control of your own life going forward and have success. And then you have something to really feel proud of because you're doing it on your own.
Yes.
And you can take those skills with you.
Yeah, that's really where your sense of like pride and dignity comes from, creating results for yourself that you love. And I mean the good kind of pride, like self-respect pride. Yeah.
Yes.
How has becoming gracious while assertive helped you in accomplishing other goals other than just weight loss and fitness?
I feel like it's helped me, and that I feel like I am more respected because, like I mentioned earlier in the episode, my problem with graciousness with other people was not being assertive enough and being very passive, sometimes bending over backwards for people. And at the end of the day, that doesn't help them. Just like we were talking about, if you're basically doing everything for everyone else instead of having them take responsibility for themselves, like how are they going to do better and learn? So I think I had to step back and learn to respect myself, and it's also respect for other people to be able to give them their own responsibility and empowerment instead of taking over for them by being too nice. I feel like now I feel like more of a professional, and that I can actually impact people in a bigger way rather than just making things easy for people. And I feel like I am okay saying no now. I used to hate saying the word no to people. Mm-hmm. And now I feel empowered that I can say no. People aren't going to hate me for not being able to do everything at all times for them. And I feel like I've gained respect for that because people don't always expect a yes, 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 yes. So for me, that was kind of hard, but I was able to get to a point where, okay, I can say no. Sometimes I still get a little anxiety saying no, but I realized that it is okay, and I can step back, and I do not have to light myself on fire just to keep the peace.
And that doesn't even help anyone if you do light yourself on fire.
Exactly.
Including you. But yeah, I think for me, it's been the same way. So remember, I didn't have any problem with the assertive part, but I did have, I lacked style in how I said no. So I would be really good at saying no or putting up those boundaries, but you can always have style intact while you do it, which I think is so powerful, and it's so bonding. And I think I'm a much more effective coach and wife and mom and in all areas of my life. So it just has made me more effective, I would say. And better, kept better relationships, which actually, without relationships, you can have no effect on people. No. So that totally makes sense. So that's what we have for today. Do you have anything else to add?
Not anything special, but I agree. Like it's going to help you build the world around you, like through the people you're with. I think being tactful and graceful, that's going to make you build a community around yourself that is filled with positivity, respect for one another, and that empowers other people.
Yeah, really good stuff. All right. Well, thanks for joining us for today's episode. If you found it to be useful, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast. Also, we would love to hear from you or help you with any particular struggles that you are facing. Our contact information will be in the show notes. And make sure to tune in next time for some more Becoming Unstoppable fitness and weight loss.